Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I've daydreamed before about what it would be like to have a special ability that other creatures have, something humans just can't do. Imagine being able to fly like a falcon, or just walking straight up a wall without any gear, like a gecko. Sounds pretty incredible, right? But if I told you that my ultimate wish was to have the special ability of a plant, you'd probably look at me a little funny. After all, what can a plant do that's so utterly amazing? Well, we're going to reframe how you look at the natural world today because we are diving into what is, without a doubt, a literal biological superpower.
I mean, really think about that for a second. What if you never had to search for your next meal, never had to cook, and instead you could just step outside, soak up some rays, and instantly generate the fuel your body needs? We animals, along with organisms like amoebas, really missed out on this incredible ability. But some protists, a few bacteria, and, most famously, plants, possess this exact power. They don't have to forage for glucose because they literally manufacture it themselves out of thin air, water, and sunlight.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. We'll start with the ultimate plant superpower, then look at the photosynthesis recipe, head inside the chloroplast, break down the 2 steps to sugar, and finally look at some clever plant adaptations.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the ultimate plant superpower, or nature's greatest ability.
Now, I know photosynthesis can sound like a big, intimidating scientific word, but let's break it down to make it a bit more approachable. It actually just comes from 2 simple Greek roots. Photo is the Greek word for light, and synthesis is the Greek word for putting together. So, quite literally, photosynthesis just means using light to put things together.
And what they're putting together is nothing short of miraculous. Plants are often given this incredible title, the lungs of the world, and it's for a very good reason. Through this process, plants take in the carbon dioxide that we just exhaled, and they give out the fresh oxygen that we need for our next breath. It's a perfect, life-sustaining exchange.
We obviously benefit a ton from that gas exchange, but it goes way further than that. Because plants make their own food, they act as the foundational producers in our world, making them absolutely indispensable in our food webs. I mean, so much of the food we eat and the medications we rely on come directly from plants. Simply put, we need them. Any process that a plant needs to survive is paramount to our very own survival.
So, the crucial point is understanding how this all works. Let's move to Section 2, the photosynthesis recipe, looking at the inputs and outputs.
Just like any great recipe you'd make in the kitchen, this one has specific ingredients, or reactants. For a plant to make its food, it needs exactly 3 inputs: sunlight, water absorbed up through its roots, and carbon dioxide straight from the air. Put those together, and the process yields 2 vital products: glucose for the plant's own survival, and oxygen, which gets released right back into the atmosphere for us to breathe.
Now here's where it gets really wild. If you compare this to aerobic cellular respiration, which is the process we humans use to make energy, you see something amazing. It turns out, the inputs of photosynthesis are essentially the products of our cellular respiration. And conversely, the products of photosynthesis are the exact inputs we need to survive. It's this incredible, perfectly balanced loop of life-sustaining chemistry.
Okay, let's zoom in a bit for Section 3, inside the chloroplast, which is really where the magic happens.
To actually cook this recipe, the plant first has to catch the light. They do this using light-capturing molecules called pigments. The most common one plants use is called chlorophyll, and this chlorophyll is housed inside tiny little compartments in the plant cells called chloroplasts. You can think of these chloroplasts as the solar panels of the plant world. They just sit there, ready to catch the sun's rays and kick off the whole operation.
And this brilliantly illustrates a really cool quirk of nature. If you've ever played with a prism, you know visible light can be separated into a rainbow of colors based on their different wavelengths. Well, the chlorophyll inside the chloroplast does a fantastic job of absorbing red and blue light, but it's not so great at green light. In fact, it actually reflects green light away. And that is exactly why so many plants appear green to us. Our eyes are just picking up the green wavelengths of light that the plant is rejecting.
All right, zooming back out to the factory floor, let's look at Section 4, 2 steps to sugar, taking us from light all the way to glucose.
This whole operation is basically a 2-part assembly line. The first phase is the light-dependent reactions. The second phase is the light-independent reactions, which you'll usually hear called the Calvin cycle. Let's briefly break down the specific mechanics of each step.
Step 1. The light-dependent reactions kicks off inside these little pigment-containing compartments in the chloroplast called thylakoids. Here, light is captured and used to physically split apart the water the plant absorbed. If you think about water's chemical formula, H2O, this splitting action first breaks it down into electrons, protons, and oxygen. And boom, that oxygen is released as a product right then and there. But the plant isn't done yet. This step also produces two super important molecules, ATP, which acts as a sort of cellular energy currency, and NADPH, which is basically a high-energy helper. The plant desperately needs both of these to fuel the next step on the assembly line.
But hold on, before we jump to step 2, the plant needs its final ingredient, carbon dioxide. Now, plants actually breathe, just like we do, but they use tiny little openings or pores, usually found on the bottom of their leaves, called stomata. Plants have the amazing ability to open and close these stomata to take in carbon dioxide gas from the air. Once that gas enters, it gets fixed, meaning it gets changed, with the help of an enzyme from an inorganic gas into a more usable organic form.
Okay, now we're ready for the Calvin cycle, those light-independent reactions. This step happens in the stroma, which is just the fluid sitting right outside those thylakoids we talked about. Here, the plant takes that newly fixed carbon dioxide, combines it with our ATP energy currency and those NADPH high-energy helpers from step 1, and runs them through a really complex series of pathways. The final result? A product that gets converted straight into glucose. The plant has successfully manufactured its own sugar. One quick side note, sometimes you'll hear this called the dark reaction, but honestly, that name is a bit misleading. While this step doesn't directly capture light itself, it absolutely does not require darkness to happen.
Let's move out of the microscopic world and see how this builds into our final section, clever plant adaptations for surviving extremes.
Picture a cactus out in the middle of a scorching, brutally hot desert. We just learned that to get carbon dioxide, plants have to open up those tiny leaf pores called stomata. But if a cactus opens its stomata during a blistering desert day to breathe, that intense heat is going to cause all its precious water to escape and evaporate immediately. So how on earth does it survive without drying out entirely? Well, nature found a brilliant biological workaround called CAM photosynthesis. Cacti and a few other plants have adapted to open their stomata only at night when the temperature drops and it's nice and cool. During the night, they quietly capture carbon dioxide and chemically store it away. Then, when the hot sun rises the next day, they can keep their stomata locked up tight to trap all their water inside while simply running their internal photosynthesis factory using their stored-up carbon dioxide and the daytime sun. It is a stunningly efficient adaptation to an extreme environment.
From the microscopic splitting of water molecules to a cactus surviving the scorching desert heat, this process truly is the engine of life on Earth. Literally every breath we take and every bite of food we eat traces back to this one biological superpower. It kind of leaves you wondering, as science advances, could humans ever learn to harness this exact plant superpower to generate our own clean energy, or even our own food? It's a pretty fascinating thought to chew on. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope you walk away today with a newfound appreciation for the silent green factories working all around us. Keep learning and stay curious.